to you if you realize the blessings we have as a church, as a nation, under the leadership of our wonderful president, President Gordon B. Hinckley. It will help us a great deal. Recently, I read about Eric Van Imar, a 33-year-old man who dreamed of climbing Mount Everest, a feat that defies many of the world's most expert climbers. In fact, nearly 90% of those who attempt the climb never reach the summit. Temperatures sink lower than 30 degrees below zero, 100-mile-per-hour winds, deadly crevasses, and avalanches. The climber must overcome the challenges of high altitude, lack of oxygen, perhaps unsanitary food and water. Since 1965, at least 165 climbers have died in the attempt to scale the 29,000-foot summit. In spite of the risks, hundreds line up each year to make the ascent, Eric among them. But there is an important difference between Eric and every other climber who had attempted to ascend before. Eric is totally blind. When Eric was 13 years of age, he lost his sight as a result of a hereditary disease of the retina. Although he could no longer do many things he wanted to do, he was determined not to waste his life feeling depressed and useless. He then began to stretch his limits. At age 16, he discovered rock climbing. By feeling the face of the rock, he found handholds and footholds that allowed him to climb. 16 years later, he began his ascent up Mount Everest. The story of his climb, as you might imagine, was filled with many harrowing and life-threatening challenges. But Eric eventually scaled the south summit and took his place with those who had gone before him, one of the few to stand on top of the highest mountain on the face of the earth. When asked how he did it, Eric said, "I just kept thinking. Keep your mind focused. Don't let doubt, fear, and frustration get in the way. Then most importantly," he said, "just take each step by step." Yes, Eric conquered Everest by simply putting one foot in front of the other, and he continued to do this until he reached the top. Like Eric, we may have obstacles that would hold us back. We may even make excuses why we can't do it, what we want to do. Perhaps when we're tempted to justify our own lack of achievement, we can remember Eric, who, in spite of having lost his sight, accomplished what many thought was the impossible, simply by continuing to put one foot in front of the other. An old proverb states,